The boys who come in the pool house, they'll wrap their dicks around my neck.
You're rooting a very good song.
And I can't come in your pool house. We are here. We're the Late Kick Podcast. Jeremy over here is streaming straight from heaven. He's died and clearly is on a white platform of clouds. So, he's transcended. What's that?
Go for JC.
Wait, why? Because my camera's so bright, or what was that?
Because you have a white background. Anyways, I'm assuming by JC, Mike means Justine Kish, who is recently cut from the UFC. So, anyways, everybody.
Is this spelled with a C? The last name was with a C?
Not at all. Anyways, everybody, we are the Late Kick Podcast. To my left, dressed like an extra in a Ja Rule music video, we've got
baby
Melanin Mike Asiffo. Mike, current MMA fighter, former broadcaster for ABC News and other sports outlets. Mike, say something for yourself.
What would I be without you? Tight and lonely.
Took my keys and stabbed the little fucking bitch. Ja Rule in your lips, your eyes.
That's less Ja Rule and more swamp Louisiana type.
Those tips, those guys, I love it when you look on me, baby.
Low key, what was it? I want to say 3 weeks ago, I was listening to some Ja Rule because like that 50 Cent Ja Rule beef came up in conversation. And I forgot just how big Ja Rule was and how many bangers he put out. Like
I don't know about bangers, but he certainly was big, unfortunately. Just not very good.
No, that was good music. I like that music.
He put out some hits. No, he put out some hits. It's just
always on time.
50 Cent just rewrote history. Like that's just what happened.
Well,
I love that music.
I can't argue with you two. One of you's in heaven and the other one starred in the man's music video. So, anyways, and to my right, we have Jalof Jeremy Asiffo, former NCAA football player, NCAA All-American, used to play for the Tampa Bay Tax Evaders. We have Jalof Jeremy Asiffo. Jeremy, say something for yourself.
I think you're getting the teams mixed up. I was part of the Orlando... I don't know, something that has to do with
the Orlando Accountants.
Orlando Accountants. Thanks, Spaghetti Stefano, for the intro.
That is incredibly racist, and I resent it.
Ellen and Mike and Jalof Jeremy? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the intro.
Well, anyways, guys, we are coming at you ahead of a decent
Hey, hold on.
weeks.
Introduce yourself. Okay.
Oh.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Stefano Hosko, your Caucasian host of this podcast. The diversity hire and the cream to Mike and Jeremy's coffee. And don't forget, the cream goes in the coffee, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming at you ahead of a very...
It's horrible. That's the last time I'm going to give you a cheer style introduce yourself. No way. Introduce yourself.
You guys are clearly demonstrating that homophobia is a big problem in the black community. Anyways,
who jumped to homophobia? I said what's wrong.
Yeah, where did that come from?
I said what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I said the cream goes in the coffee, and you guys are the coffee. I'm the cream. What's wrong with that?
No, man.
I made that.
Non-consensual.
Well, Jeremy, after the comment you made off air before the podcast, let's not get into consent, shall we? Anyway,
you have evidence of that?
Blurred lines. I know Jeremy wants it. I know he wants it. Anyways,
why I exposed him now?
For the last time, we are the Late Kick Podcast. We're coming at you before a pretty decent card with big implications for the lightweight title picture and the future of the lightweight division. I'm thoroughly excited for it. We lost our co-main event, but that doesn't matter because we're chugging on forward. Now, before we get into it, we got a lot of news to discuss. Then the fight card to break down, and then we'll be signing off. David should be joining us at some point. But before all that, like the podcast, subscribe, tell your grandmother about it, tell the whole Mike's asleep.
No, I'm here.
Mike's got some narcolepsy issues. Take that phone and shove it up your bum, okay? I'm doing a bit, okay? Tell your dog about it. Tell your cat about it. Tell the infestation of cockroaches in your basement about it. Tell everyone about the leg kick, because everyone needs a little leg kick in their life. So, with that being said, gentlemen, shall we get into the news?
Yeah.
Let's news it up.
News.
This is a big and momentous news week in the leg kick. First off, starting with a little weird piece of news, and I'm interested to get your opinions on this. Anthony Johnson arrested for identity theft. Now,
yeah.
Let me give you my quick initial thoughts on this. When I first heard of this, I'm like, why the hell does this guy who clearly has done well for himself, why is he using somebody else's credit card illegally? What most likely happened is probably someone booked the ticket in his name. It was like, hey, I'll take care of it for you, and then booked the flight illegally for him. But just weird as hell. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I didn't give it much thought besides weird, like clearly Anthony Johnson doesn't need to, at least from our recollection, you never know what's going on the inside, but he doesn't need to steal anybody's identity, right? So it was just kind of weird.
Yeah,
the only thing is I was thinking about it. Sorry?
The man can afford his own flight tickets.
Yeah, for sure, right? The thing I was thinking about though is this is not the first time Anthony Johnson's been in jail. Now, granted, it's not been for anything related to fraud or identity theft or anything like that. He has gotten in trouble with the law in the past, so maybe he's just on that, just on that can't escape kind of that life thing. But I wouldn't think that's the case when it comes to things like this, though. Like I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see as more info comes out, but just a weird situation. Number 2, Dan Hardy is released from his UFC fight contract, which he was repeatedly asking for after their relationship soured. If you'll recall, he stopped fighting because he was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. But apparently
Parkinson?
Yeah, something like that. And apparently it's no longer an issue, and he's looking to fight in Japan. So either Risen or One will probably have him, and, well, there you have it.
So Risen will put him up against someone who's juiced to the gills, and then he'll most likely either win in 2 minutes or get knocked out in 2 minutes.
Bold prediction, Mike. That's assuming Dan Hardy won't himself be juiced to the gills.
Good point. Well, I said win in 2 minutes, right? Like, you never know with Japan. They might throw out... See, this is the weird thing about Japan is they might throw out somebody who doesn't deserve to be anywhere near ring or cage with Dan Hardy, or they might throw out, like, the next big thing, and we haven't heard of him yet.
And they honestly, the competition that we have made considered lackluster up against Dan Hardy might be more of his level today. Like, let's be honest, it's been quite a while since he stepped foot in the octagon. We don't really know how he's going to look. We've seen deteriorations happen over a shorter period of time, to be frank.
Yeah. Right, and he's worthy too.
I love how things don't work out in the UFC sometimes, and you still have other avenues to do what you love. I don't really see that in other sports, so I like that aspect of it. Good luck, Dan Hardy, in your future endeavors.
Next up, John Jones apparently not interested in fighting Stipe and waiting it out.
Nor should he. Yeah.
Especially in this last chapter of his career, he doesn't we're assuming last chapter, but he doesn't have the time, I don't think, to necessarily, take a loss and then rebuild from that. This is kind of the final run, I'm assuming, at least.
But should he at least fight somebody to get his feet wet in the heavyweight division?
Hey, I'd like to see that. Personally, that's what I've been advocating for. I mean, clearly John Jones is willing to sit out and wait and play that card, assuming that he'll be next. for the title picture. But that's what I'm in favor of. Like, let's see how he fares up a weight class, right?
I mean, like that's the thing, right?
Sometimes people just look atrocious up a weight class. For example, Luke Rockhold looked, labored. His footwork looked non-existent, and he just, gassed and disintegrated against Jan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm just saying nor should he is because it seems
strategically for him, right? I agree.
Yeah, it just seems like John's in it for money fights. Stipe is not a money fight, right?
Well, you don't think John versus Stipe could headline a card? I think that easily could headline a card. And the UFC used to put on stacked cards without a title fight.
Okay, but it's not going to make John's saying 10 million plus. You think he's going to get 10 million plus from fighting Stipe on UFC 260 whatever, right?
I think he should.
Right? He would get 10 million. Oh, Stefano, did you freeze? I think Stefano went Mr. Freeze. But Jeremy, let me ask you. Do you think John?
Both of you. You're frozen. You're frozen. Both of you guys need an internet upgrade. I'm sorry. Mike, go on. What were you saying?
No, I said, yeah, John Jones is not getting 10 million to fight Stipe, right?
Yeah, I agree.
He's not.
Well, let's look at it this way. Why not? Because it's not a title fight?
Well, yes, it's also because of Stipe's name. It's the weirdest thing. Stipe is exactly what you think should sell, but for whatever reason, well, I know what the reason is, because every time he opens his mouth, he sounds like he's from
it's because he's white, okay? It's because he's white. No, I'm kidding. Listen, but as a B-side to John Jones, I think the fight could sell. I mean, the number one pay-per-view of 2020, number one selling pay-per-view was McGregor in a non-title fight against Donald Cerrone.
Yeah, because of McGregor.
Yeah, exactly. And because of John Jones, he was a reliable draw, right?
Fair enough.
Moving on.
But do you think it's going to get 10 million, though? Let me ask a question. Do you think he's going to get paid 10 million to fight Stipe? Because he's saying 10 million plus.
I think he deserves it, but I don't think the UFC would be willing to fork that out, unfortunately. So I think, therefore, he's waiting. Next up, cuts.
Ooh. No, I'm kidding.
We've got KB Buller, Anthony Burchak, Justine Kish, Luke Sanders, Jorgen De Castro, Oscar Pijoda, Maurice Green, and Anthony Burchak, all cut from the UFC. Fellas and ladies, it's been a good run, but those are more or less expected now.
Yeah. It's sad because it's like the UFC didn't used to cut people so frequently, but if any a person should, well, I wouldn't say should be, but those are kind of the names that you'd think, right?
Yeah.
Mo was on Mo Green, for example, was on a 3-fight losing streak last time I remember, and his only win in like his win before that losing streak was that a forearm choke, or was it it was, oh my god, it was a guillotine from side control. He was on the bottom.
That was his last win against
Jean Vellante, I think.
Jean Vellante, yeah. So Mo Green, kind of the prospect that never really delivered, and Jorgen De Castro, again, another prospect who didn't really deliver in the way he thought he would after that big Justin Tafa knockout.
KB Bular, I feel a little bad for because he's a Canadian product and just didn't pan out for him.
Unfortunately, a couple tough matchups, but what are you going to do? And next upcoming PFL card will have Anthony Pettis versus Alexander Martinez and Clarissa Shields debut on it. Fun stuff.
Yeah. If I could just say, though, with Anthony Pettis, it's weird that he's main eventing after losing to essentially, I wouldn't say a no-name, but
Clay Collard is no name. He fought in the UFC, and he's a skilled pro boxer.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't say a no-name, but he's not necessarily,
Clay Collard's boxing record is like, he has 4 losses and like 8 wins or something like that, though. Like, I saw his last fight. He's good in the cage, but boxing,
No, but
Yeah,
the
I
point
mean,
I'm trying to make,
obviously, pro boxers, it's a different,
it's a
skill
different.
set, and the boxing within boxing is far more substantial than that in the UFC, right?
But the
Um,
point I'm trying to make is that like when you talk about Jay Collard, um,
Clay Collard,
sorry, why do I get because Jay
because you're
Collier,
thinking of Jake Collier, yeah.
yeah. But when you think of Clay Collard, you're not saying like even some hardcore fans would struggle to remember him. So that's my point, right?
Yeah, but who else are you going to headline a PFL card with?
No, that's my point. Like it's weird because it takes wind out of the sails, but at the same time, Anthony Pettis is a draw. So yeah.
Next up, in more PFL news, the Verdum fight overturned. But the New Jersey Athletic Commission overturned it to a no contest. I mean, this is remarkable in that an athletic commission did anything at all.
Mhm.
Um, because usually they would just wash their hands of the matter and say, nope, it stands as it is. But to their credit, the New Jersey Athletic Commission did something, but instead of overturning it to a win for Verdum, they overturned it to a no contest, which is just bizarre. Like Fabricio Verdum.
I'm actually okay with the call. I'm actually okay with the call because
Why?
I just think that when you do kind of like this win for a tap, because ultimately, I think the point I am trying to get to is that a no contest kind of signals like let's make it kind of like a clean wipe slate versus a let's change it to a win because of a perceived, even though we know it's definitely a tap, of a perceived tap, right?
But it's
You
not a
know,
perceived tap, Mike. We have
because
video. We
okay,
have
well,
video documenting the tap. If this
hold
is
on,
this is
but
no different
Stefano,
from
if you
Verdum.
sorry, go
This is
ahead.
no different from Verdum submitting someone and then him, ambushing him in the parking lot afterwards and knocking him out. The fight's over. It's done. Once you have the tap and Verdum lets go of the triangle, the fight's over. That's it. It
Well,
doesn't
I'm
matter.
inclined to agree from a moral perspective, but from a technical perspective, what's the gentleman's name? Ferreira can up and down deny that he tapped and say like, oh, that was just me trying to find the way out. Like, if you cannot definitively get somebody to admit, you kind of have to wash your hands of it. Like,
No, that's complete bullshit and makes absolutely no
no,
sense.
it's
Why do
bullshit
you?
from
What
a
is
moral
what?
perspective, but not
What do you
from a
mean
legal perspective.
moral? No. Moral. What does morality have anything to do with it? We have
No,
documented
because
evidence of a tap on camera. It doesn't matter what the man says or not. We
right,
clearly saw that he tapped.
one
If he taps, the fight
one
is over. No
Yeah, I agree
several
with you.
taps, at least three
I was
taps.
here. Look, I was here last week talking about how much BS it is for fake taps to take place, and it's a respect thing.
But it's not
We
a
know
fake tap. It
this,
was a genuine
but
tap, and then he continued after.
no,
Fake tap, real tap. It's a tap, and
Stefano, hear what I'm saying because you don't interrupt me because I'm trying to explain it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hear me? Am I here?
I can hear you. But Stefano's
Okay,
paused. He can probably hear you though. So
Stefano, can you hear me? Okay. What I am saying is this: if you cannot get him to admit that he tapped, which the New Jersey Athletic Commission is not going to try to do because it's at this point ridiculous to try to get someone to admit to tapping. You gotta just see it. You gotta NC it. You gotta NC it.
we had brief technical difficulties off air. Mike admitted he was incorrect about the Verdum situation. It's okay.
Ah,
Moving on
ah.
because we've got a ton of news to get through and a big card to discuss. But just off air, Mike said that he agrees with me. He was just being stubborn. Andre Ewell versus Julio Arce booked. Fun fight. Ben Rothfell versus Chris Barnett, May 22nd. Interesting. I thought Ben Rothwell already had a fight, but here's a good one. Jeremy Stevens versus Matthias Gamrot for July 17th.
Tough fight for Jeremy Stevens. And he's probably going to be the favorite in that fight. But a lot of value in Matisse Gamrot. A lot of value. I would take the under, to be honest.
Now, in this next fight, this man can't seem to get a step up in rankings or name value, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to fight him either. Islam Makhachev against Thiago Moises, who is a difficult fight, but definite submission threat on the ground. But we will see. Makhachev, I think at this point deserves a bigger name, but who knows what's going on back scene.
Here's what's going on. Ali's calling Dana. Dana's calling guys for him to fight. And then they say, Dana goes to name fighter in the top 15 here. Hey, you want to fight Islam Makhachev? And then he goes, hello? Hello? Hello?
I wouldn't want to fight him neither.
Right? And Mick Maynard goes to the next guy. You want to fight Islam Makhachev? Hello? Hello? Yeah. So that's what's going on.
Next up, we've got the headliner for the July 17th card announced, Paulo Costa versus Jared Cannonier. And if this is not a banger.
Can't wait for this one.
Yeah.
Can't wait for this one.
If you guys got like initial thoughts, no analysis, just initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts.
Sorry.
I think that Paulo Costa's pressure could get him in trouble against the Cannonier early with Cannonier's power. Mm-hmm. But it will be fireworks nonetheless. I think it would be advantageous of Costa to work in takedowns with this one if he can get Cannonier to the fence. But interesting fight.
See, this is the thing, is that I really truly think that Paulo Costa has that jiu-jitsu nuclear bomb in his pocket, but he just doesn't use it. So, yeah. Anyway, let's
falls in love with his hands. Next up, September 20. We've got a lot of announcements to get through. Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker, September 25th.
Fun fight.
Mayhem, chaos. Winging punches will be thrown, and so will flying knees, and there'll just be a giant dust bubble in the center of the octagon like a cartoon, and then, after 30 seconds of chaos, somebody will be lying unconscious on the floor. Paul Daly versus Jason Jackson, booked for Bellator 260.
There it is. My boy Jason Jackson's going to take away that one.
Yeah, the susceptibility of Paul Daly to wrestling is a well-documented fact. I think we know what's going to happen in this fight. But good for Jason Jackson. Probably going to finally get a Wikipedia page.
Which is crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to delve deep on that.
But McGregor is now the number one richest athlete, according to Forbes 2021.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Well,
you know why, Jeremy? No, do you know why?
Why?
Because he just sold his stake in Proper 12 and got $150 million.
150 million.
I heard it was
600. There's no way he's richer than Floyd Mayweather.
I'm pretty sure Floyd Mayweather burns money like it's kindling.
Right, but his assets got to be, because that's what Forbes does, right? They assets and stuff.
Forbes takes what you get paid the year and just say, okay, you made this much in earnings, right? They don't take your assets over a specific period of time. And Floyd hasn't really had a payday in sports or anything for 3 years.
You know what? That's fair. He probably
right. So even though Floyd's probably making money off the assets, he hasn't. So
you're probably like Forbes is talking about right now, right? Not like of all time. I thought you said all time.
No, just for the year.
Stefano?
Yeah, I believe it was just earnings in the year. Anyways, Beerus versus Weiss booked for Dragon Ball Super. No, I'm kidding. Just looking.
I get it.
Okay, so in other news, Anderson Silva reportedly done with MMA. Not done with combat sports as he's fighting Julio Chavez Jr., but done with MMA. All right.
I mean, okay.
I don't know what to make of that, but,
I think what this screams of is no one's calling his phone to fight an MMA fight, so he's got to go somewhere else, right?
Are you sure? Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure ONE FC would be ringing him off the hook. He's perfectly on brand for them. The whole
You'd
respect
think.
in martial arts. We're all about being respectful and respect in martial arts. And they'd be Anderson Silva bowing and talking in his high pitched Michael Jackson voice. You think they'd be all about that?
You know what though?
And they're not against hiring older athletes or athletes that have multiple brutal losses. I mean, Alan Galani is still plastered all over their Instagram page, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Isn't
I
Vitor
have
under
this
contract for
theory.
them? They could shamelessly do Vitor versus Anderson too. Sorry, go on.
No, it's true. But I distinctly have this theory that I think Dana has called the big three and has said, don't sign Anderson Silva.
And what currency does Dana White calling Scott Coker have for them?
See, that's my thing.
What leverage does Dana White have to say, don't sign Anderson Silva to Scott Coker or Chaudhry?
No, to Chaudhry, I get it, because Chaudhry and him have a working relationship. With
Do they,
Coker, though? I don't know why. No, they do.
Why do they have a working relationship?
Well, they make a lot of trades, and they
made one trade, system. Like
they make one trade, but technically speaking, but there is a feeder system where guys do go back and forth between one and
that. And absolutely not.
Okay. All right.
No, but give me evidence of that, please. If that's the case, I can think of one.
So any guy who's been struggling in UFC does end up going to one over Bellator most of the time, with the exception of Yoel Romero. So Sage.
Wait, Anthony Johnson. I think, but that's not an indication of a feeder system. A feeder system is the exact opposite. A feeder system would mean
I didn't say feeder.
You did say feeder. Jeremy, did he not say feeder?
I didn't say feeder. No, I didn't say feeder. I just said.
Jeremy, did he say feeder?
I'm not in this, bro.
Well, you can just be play neutral historical observer.
Feeder? Yeah, Michael, you said feeder.
Did I say feeder? I didn't mean feeder, but I just meant they trade with each other. They go.
They did one trade, and then a few athletes at the UFC no longer want.
Hey, David. Sorry, go ahead.
I said they made one trade, and then a couple of athletes the UFC no longer wanted went into one, but that's not indicative of any working relationship.
Misha came back to the UFC from one.
No, she was never signed as a fighter to one. She's their current VP. That's doesn't indicate a working relationship of any sort.
So that's a working relationship. So.
Yeah, it's the VP.
She's a VP, and she was already under contract to fight with the UFC. So she's coming back to fight with the UFC when she wants to fight, because the UFC doesn't nullify your contract when you retire like that. They have to relinquish you from your contract. And Misha being a name, they obviously didn't want her to go over to one if she was coming back to fight, right? That's still not evidence of a working relationship. I'm failing to see a working relationship between one and the UFC.
Pay her for a role. How is that not a working relationship?
No, David. You tuned in midway through the conversation. You don't know what we're talking about. I said he said that the UFC
and one have some sort of working relationship.
He said the UFC and one have a working relationship, not Misha Tate and one.
Oh, okay.
No, the UFC and one does have a working relationship.
You failed to demonstrate that time and time again. Anyways,
we're not going to go that far.
No, it's false. It's false, and we got to move on because we're already like a half an hour in to news. Okay, so Alejandro Pantoja versus Brendan Royval announced. Not sure which card that's on, but fun fight. Darren Stewart versus Eric Anders rematch booked for 263 after that first one ended in a weird no contest.
I like that. Two underrated fighters.
Alan Jobin retires, continuing commentary, but he has retired from MMA.
Wait, he does commentary for the UFC?
Well, he does he's on the desk and stuff for
that's cool.
Some of the post shows and whatnot. And then
say why? Any reason why?
Oh yeah, he stated that accumulating injuries and he wants to spend more time with his family. He's going to focus on a broadcasting role. And honestly, he's coming off of a win. I think probably a good time for him to retire. Jobin, more of a middle of the pack kind of fighter. Always has been, put on some entertaining performances, but not going to climb into a title picture time soon. And when you're in that position, I guess you sometimes have to look yourself in the face and say, how long can I keep doing this, and do I want to?
Especially since there really truly isn't really a middle class in the UFC. Like there used to be, like, remember when there used to be guys like Rich Franklin and Roy Nelson, who kind of, you knew where they were middle of the pack, but they could make a lot of money in that middle of the pack role.
They almost seem
like
more
now,
defined in that role.
yeah, right.
I
And
would
now
argue
that
there is still
sorry,
a middle class, but this is a preview pod, so we'll save that. But I would think, like, Ben, it's that guy, not Ben Roethlisberger. That's the football player, the
Oh yeah,
heavyweight.
and Troy Polamalu, him too, right?
Hilarious. No, the heavyweight. Even last week, they had
Ben
Ben
Neil
Roethlisberger.
Magny.
Rothwell.
Yeah, Ben Rothwell, Neil Magny versus Jeff Neal. How is
Yeah,
that not
but
a middle class?
I think
Like,
No, but what I'm
the
trying to
point that
explain is that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I think what Mike was trying to illustrate is that before you could be kind of comfortable in that role of entertaining fighter who wasn't necessarily a contender for the title, but you would be given a main event slot and you kind of knew your position in the UFC, like an Akiyama or like a Chris Lieben, who
Exactly.
UFC kept around because of their entertainment value, but it was kind of known that they weren't really going to make it to a title slot, but they were a commodity nonetheless.
And you can make a lot of money. Sponsors will call your name because you're Sexy Yama or you're Roy Nelson, Big Country, or things like that, or Rich Ace Franklin, right? So you could make a lot of money in that role, but now with the days of no UFC sponsorships and no fighter individuality, when you're in the middle class, are you really in the middle class? Like, you're kind of, you know what I'm saying?
The atrophying middle class, isn't that the story of our economic times?
yeah.
Just two more, and we've made it to the end. Vince Pichel versus Austin Hubbard. No reaction.
Nah.
No.
Okay.
Although, you know what, Austin Hubbard coming off a win, didn't he send who's that kid who he sent packing?
No, he had
Max
a loss.
Roscoff, yeah.
He had a loss since then. He
Oh,
lost
did he?
to,
Okay, no, no.
what's that grappling phenom's name?
Kron? Was it Kron?
No, it was
Brand
not
Dawson?
Crawford. No.
No, it's not even the same right division.
Anyways, final fight announcement. Marina Moroz is booked against a prospect who I'm actually very, very excited for at 125. And you won't hear me say that often. Manon Fiorot, if you remember her, she was the karate stylist who came in and just blasted another debuting fighter. I'm excited for what she's got, and I don't say that often about women's 125.
It's only because she had that impressive knockout, though, like against another debuting fighter, you know?
Oh, yeah, honestly, it's because of her karate for me. It's
Just
the
want to go
karate.
back for just a second on Austin Hubbard. It's funny you say, "Oh yeah, he lost to that grappling phenom." Which one? Joe Selecki, Mark Madsen, Davy Ramos? Because those are his only three losses in the UFC.
Yeah, all three of them grappling phenoms, right?
Yeah. Like
He
world
is-
champions. Like,
He has not been given an easy time of it. Anyways, that pretty much does us for news. Holy crap. That was a lot of news, ladies and gentlemen, was it not? Wow, David, so good of you to come here and read through all that news with us and slave through it. That was, whew, that's really.
Yeah, I knew the word slave weren't too far from your mouth, but keep going.
oh my lord.
Oh,
What is this
sorry,
podcast
that was
become?
that may have been a little microaggression on my part, David.
I feel oppressed. I don't know about you.
But usually,
Oh.
wow, my
Did your camera
microaggression was
feel
so
impressed?
strong. Jesus, David, your carpet is filthy.
Hey, don't diss
You
the man's
think-
carpet.
That's disgusting. No, I'm tired of that. Of the putting up with David. Take a vacuum and possibly a steam cleaner to that filthy carpet.
How
Jesus.
dare you, sir?
I'm glad he's gone
Okay.
after I saw that carpet.
You
You know what, David?
All right.
Don't come back. No. Don't come back till you clean that.
Guys,
filthy
we
carpet.
have a preview to go through, and it's 9:55.
Don't come back till you clean that filthy carpet. That was disgusting.
Okay, let's power through these.
Come on.
Okay,
come on.
so
Come on,
big
stay on task.
big implications for the lightweight title picture. Will David clean his carpet or not?
The answer is no.
Answer is no. Okay. Anyways.
Nah, I don't follow no directions from no white man, but keep going.
Yeah, tell him again. Fight the
Well,
power.
I'm Latin actually. I'm Italian.
Okay.
Guys, we're not doing this, please. Let's
Yeah,
get
can we
to the
play the
preview.
oppression? Can we play the oppression Olympics some other time?
Fine.
Anyways.
He's gonna slip in that
I seem
carpet
to
joke
recall
one more
you're
time.
half
Watch.
Italian, but whatever. Anyway, guy,
He's gonna slip in that carpet joke again. Watch.
yeah, I know.
Just slip it in.
Guys,
Wait,
you have a
listen,
stack cards,
Pandora's
Jesse,
open.
man.
Listen, guys, listen. So, does it not feel like forever since we've seen the lightweight title competed for? Even though, I mean, Khabib versus Gaethje was
During the pandemic.
during the pandemic, so wasn't that long ago, was it?
Khabib versus Poirier 2 was on Fight Island, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you say
No.
Khabib versus Poirier too? There was only one Khabib.
No.
Poirier.
Khabib versus Poirier, 2 was also
As
on
well.
Fight Island, no?
Actually, that was just in Abu Dhabi. They just had an event in
okay.
Abu Dhabi. It wasn't a
Yeah.
Fight Island. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was in the Louvre or whatever they call it.
Fake news. But yeah, no, finally we got to see this lightweight division moving. About time. Not to say, Khabib's been holding it up or anything, but it's good to crown a new champion in arguably the most stacked division.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't blame anyone necessarily for holding it up because Khabib's like, no, guys, I'm serious. I'm actually retiring. And I don't blame the UFC for wanting to try and incentivize him back into the picture at the height of his stardom. But, Khabib, a man of his word, stayed clear of the sport. Anyways, and what a fight it is. A car crash waiting to happen. Chandler versus Oliveira. Now, I went back and watched a few of their fights. And my God, first of all, I was leaning towards Oliveira early, but after watching some of their fights, I've switched my opinion. And I think Chandler is going to take it, and Chandler is going to take it early. Now, I want to get your reactions on it first before I go on a 10-minute diatribe about the technical, nuances of this fight.
Give me the Chan, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be wrestler versus hilarious. I was gonna say it's gonna be wrestler versus BJJ guy, essentially. And usually in those ones, I would favor the BJJ guy. I'm gonna go with Oliveira just because I think he's super long, he's super rangy, and that will actually kind of give him a little bit of an advantage.
David thinks Oliveira is super long, but he's been watching too many porn parodies of this upcoming
hilarious
fight. So don't let that influence your.
I rewatched the Tony Ferguson fight, and I was once again blown away by how Oliveira, like his game plan, you can tell he's a much more mature fighter. And I also rewatched Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler, and all respect to City Kickboxing, but Dan Hooker was making a lot of mistakes, like early, a lot of mistakes. He kind of made it not easy, but like he walked right into that one. So
so that fight, I actually, on my initial watching of that fight, I was thinking, my God, like Chandler's doing a terrible job of cutting the cage. Hooker may be circling around the ring like a chicken without a head. But at the same time, I'm like, Chandler, like throw a damn left hook, for Christ's sakes, cut him off, right? Throw an inside low kick. But on second review of the fight, I think that was more than intentional. I think Chandler was trying to encourage and incentivize Hooker to circle to that direction, punishing the body with that right cross to bring the hands low, and then able to close distance so quickly up against the cage and shut Hooker's lights out with that first left hook he threw.
Well, sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
I was just going to say, from watching back some of Oliveira's fights, one of the things that stands out to me is that the man is a complete defensive liability. He's managed to cover up a lot of that with offensive volume. He fights behind a good jab and a good front kick. And one thing that he was doing very well in the Kevin Lee fight was getting Kevin Lee to reach, kind of grabbing the hands of Kevin Lee, fighting from that long guard, and then when Kevin Lee would reach, he would come up underneath with an uppercut, and sometimes following it up with a hook. But beautiful, like just wedging that uppercut up through the armpit of Kevin Lee. But the man is very hittable. He comes out with just the most awkward looking head movement you've ever seen in the first round, and then just abandons it. And it seemed like every time Kevin Lee would throw the cross counter, every time Kevin Lee would aim for Oliveira, with the exception of a few jabs, which Oliveira was able to counter, he would land on his target. It's just that Oliveira was able to stay on him long enough, apply enough pressure, and get him into grappling exchanges where he ultimately had the advantage. For what he lacks in defense, he's got some phenomenal offense. Very hard kicker, added a good jab to his game. Oftentimes a little bit reckless on the feet, though. And I think with the speed of Chandler, especially a lot of that reaching, might get him into trouble with his hitability and Chandler's speed.
So that's kind of the weird thing about this fight is, I actually think this is one of the more interesting fights that Chandler could have in the UFC because, you know, the book is up until the last couple of fights, Oliveira is allergic to pressure. You know, if you pressure him, you're going to have a good night. And I think the reason why is because you mentioned it. He does have some defensive flaws. For whatever reason.
Incredibly hittable.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, he just, for a guy who's, you know, a very tall and lanky guy, and uses his reach well with the jab, he does get hit quite a bit, and relies on his durability. And for whatever reason, if you do step to him, he does give ground, even though when you don't, his pressure is amazing. The thing I wonder about, though, is if Chandler goes that takedown route, which he does seem to do when Chandler does gas, and that's the problem I have is that Chandler, I don't know if he can keep a pace for 5 hard rounds with Oliveira, who is a cardio monster.
Yeah.
And if it goes to the ground, Oliveira has a minefield waiting for 5 rounds. So,
which is why body work is going to be a very important. I agree. I agree with you, by the way. The later rounds might favor Oliveira. Both of them have had gas tank issues in the past, but yeah, if Chandler leans on that wrestling, the leg entanglements of Oliveira and his closed guard are dangerous minefields to navigate. You can stall him out occasionally from half, but that's going to be tricky. That's going to be very tricky. I think bodywork's important for both of them, especially kicking for different reasons, though. Oliveira is going to want to attack the body with quite a bit of kicks.
And legs. That Dan Hooker fight, Michael Chandler didn't check a single kick.
Yeah,
he
but
doesn't do that. Yeah,
I meant specifically the body to kind of slow down the cardio of Chandler and maybe even get Chandler grabbing at his legs. You know, Chandler, the body work's going to be important to bring the hands down of Oliveira.
Give me Michael Chandler in this one. You all have great points, and if it goes the distance, then I really don't know, but I don't think it'll go to the distance. I think Michael Chandler stops him in the second round, late in the second round. I just think he's going to walk through Oliveira's...
I'm inclined to agree.
I think he's going to walk through his kicks. He's going to continue coming forward, maybe even take him down and work on some ground and pound. But I got Michael Chandler winning it by knockout.
One thing I do find interesting as well, I went back and watched the second Benson Henderson fight with Chandler, and one game plan that I think he shouldn't get lured into, that he did a little bit with Benson Henderson, where he looked quite hittable himself in that fight, was that he got into a kicking battle with Benson Henderson and made the, you know, always tricky and always dangerous Benson Henderson, who at this, you know, he should have had as close a fight with Benson Henderson by all accounts as he did. He was able to get the job done with a beautiful, I believe, right body kick, fell through into southpaw, and then landed a jab cross, and was able to close so much distance with it, which put Bendo out. But if he gets caught in that kind of kicking battle with Oliveira and doesn't set up his kicks properly, Oliveira might just grab a leg of his own and dump him, which he did against Ferguson, which he did against Kevin Lee before him, which he's done against quite a few opponents. So if you're going to kick as Chandler, you better set that shit up. But I think the hands are probably going to get it done, and I favor a first-round knockout by Chandler, generally in this fight.
I would say more so the second. Like, durability, like Charles Oliveira can take a shot. I know Chandler has a lot of power, but I do think the chin needs to be worn down a bit before Oliveira will go down. I got Chandler in this one. The one thing I will say, though, is I think it would behoove Oliveira to really focus on those inside kicks and outside calf kicks, because Chandler does not check kicks. That is a thing. He doesn't check kicks. He elects to actually retract the leg or try to go for a takedown. And the thing with Oliveira is, if he gets taken down, mazel tov. He's on his back, and he's got a minefield waiting for you there, right? So why not, if you're Oliveira, and I'm pretty sure his corner's probably already thinking this, kick with defensive responsibility and setting it up, but kick with impunity. I didn't even say that right. Impunity. Right? So, yeah, just kick at will. Kick at will. Why not?
How different are these two gentlemen's path to the title?
Yeah.
Very different. I'm looking at Charles Oliveira's ranking, and his record, and man, as of 2017, like before that, he was on a 3-fight losing streak. So before his win against Will Brooks, he lost to Paul Felder, lost to Anthony Pettis, and lost to Ricardo Lemos, so back to back to back. And that's even, not even counting his losses to Max Holloway and beyond before that. So, yeah, the fact that he's been able to turn it around and, start beating by some of the lower ranked guys like Jim Miller, Christos Giagos, Clay Guida, but then they kind of ramped up the difficulty level, and it was fighting Jared Flash Gordon, Nick Lentz, David Tamor, until eventually he beat Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee, or whatever the order is there. So he's pretty battle tested, and he's been in the UFC for a long time. I'm not sure. It's not a record for the longest the longest time in the UFC before you get a title shot, if I'm not mistaken, right? That record
is a record, you're saying, for that?
No, I'm saying, is it a record? Because I think that record belongs to Bisping, if I'm not mistaken, and Dustin Poirier.
Bisping would make sense because he's been around since the first Ultimate Fighter, right? But
second.
True. Yeah, but this guy's been there for a decade, even 12 years or something like that, but he's been putting in work, and he deserves his shot.
Remarkable,
Chandler, on the other hand. Pardon?
No, I said it's remarkable. Go on.
Yeah, Michael Chandler, on the other hand, it's hard to argue against whether he deserves it, given what we saw against Dan Hooker. I mean, I honestly thought Dan Hooker, just his stand-up was going to be too good, but once again, too many defensive mistakes. But at the same time, it's weird that in his second fight, he's fighting for the title. That's all I'm going to say. And if he does win it, then we really got to look at, really have to evaluate whether the UFC is that big of a jump from Bellator as much as we think it is. You know what I mean? Because this is a dude.
I would say it is.
Top of the food chain in Bellator, but
I would say it is a big jump, but not because the top end of Bellator isn't competitive with the UFC. And in some divisions, I'd say right now, the 205 division in Bellator might even be stronger. It's just that the UFC has the majority of the talent. Bellator, to be fair, definitely has some talent. They just don't have the depth of the UFC.
That's the thing, right? It's the top end is good, but when you start scraping the bottom of the barrel, the UFC is like that big tub of ice cream you get at the
I don't want to be disrespectful to no one, but I mean, we've seen some bottom of the barrel fights this past year, man.
Because of the pandemic.
In Bellator.
I mean, but
even if it's some of the medium pack guys, no disrespect.
If you look at Michael Chandler's record, though, before Dan Hooker, he fought Ben Henderson, who's very advanced in age, Sidney Outlaw, who doesn't have a Wikipedia page, Patricio Ferrer, which is no joke. Brent Premise, maybe not as battle tested as we'd like, but then Brendan Gritz, and he's only, a few years away from beating your Dave Rickles, right? So, I don't know.
He also has 2 losses to Will Brooks, who Charles Oliveira has a win over, by the way.
If we're playing MMA math.
And Will Brooks was a different fighter back then, as opposed to the guy who fought Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, Will Brooks looked odd when he came into the UFC, losing to both Alex Oliveira and Charles Oliveira, and then Nick Lentz.
So are we going to spend like 30 seconds on the other fights? Because we've been talking about this.
Oh, I think to be honest, the 2 most interesting ones to talk about are the main and co-main. Other than that, yeah, I don't mind spending 30 seconds on the rest of them. Shannon Burgos versus Barbosa is an interesting
one. Like that one.
Yeah, like that one.
But you know what? I will say though, with Chandler is that, the height. You wonder just how much the height disparity will matter in this one. Chandler stands at, I believe, 5'8".
I don't think it'll matter.
Right?
Man.
I don't think it'll matter.
I didn't think it mattered when I thought it would matter when he fought Dan Hooker, because Hooker's pretty tall for the division, and it didn't matter.
Well, height is one thing, but you have to be able to maximize your height effectively, and Hooker wasn't able to do that, constantly moving backwards, but not really able to implement the weapons to kind of keep a check on the distance. You guys want to head into T. Ferg versus Dariush?
Yeah, and this one is kind of before we begin, because it's kind of like related. Did you guys watch the press conference for this fight?
I just saw it before. Oh, David, can you just adjust your camera a little bit because you're out of frame?
Oh, snap. Okay.
The top of your head.
Oh no, it's gonna fall again.
And the top of your head looks ridiculous.
Okay.
Sorry, was that black voice? Did I just do black voice there?
It's called a black sit, first off.
What do you call it?
Yes.
Tony Ferguson said that Michael Chandler, #1, ducked him, and he has Dana White privilege, which I think
I love that. That's a funny
best line I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, that's a funny
Dana White. It took me a second to get that, too. Even Dana laughed at that one.
Tony on point with the jokes. Let's hope he's back to his former self.
Oh, buddy, he's going to lose, isn't he?
Tony?
Yeah.
I don't actually know if he'll lose. I don't know, because here's the thing. First of all, in his last fight, Tony looked to me like he'd lost his bloodlust. And to me, bloodlust is what makes Tony Ferguson great. From every position, from every situation.
Sorry, can you clarify what you mean by bloodlust for those of us who are uninitiated?
I was literally just clarifying that, and you interrupted my clarification. How dare you?
My bad.
I was like, the definition of bloodlust is, and David's like, sorry, could you define bloodlust for me? I just meant Tony Ferguson's desire just to hurt people, to cut them, to mark them up in every situation. He seemed bereft of that in his last fight against Charles Oliveira. And I don't know if it's a permanent change. Sometimes a beating like he took against Gaethje can do that to you. He also looked technically behind on the jiu-jitsu. And I mean, Oliveira had a couple of good tricks in that fight. Like, one thing that I love that he did, when Ferguson would try and get that half butterfly to work back to guard, Oliveira would work a grapevine, which is when you literally just hook your leg around your opponent's leg like a grapevine, flatten it out, and then backstep over, pass effortlessly into mount. One thing that gives me pause in this fight is that Dariush's jiu-jitsu is some of the best in the world. Now, to get it there, obviously, he has to take Ferguson to the floor. And typically, 10th Planet jiu-jitsu guys are not world-class. Quite good, but nowhere near world-class jiu-jitsu. They have an intriguing little style and some fun tricks, but the problem is Tony has weapons to hurt Dariush on the way in. Dariush is reckless. He throws himself off balance with every overhand left that he throws, and Tony has those intercepting elbows that will just sit you down and get you to reconsider your pressure. And Dariush's double leg is nothing special either. He finishes takedowns well when he gets you up against the cage. Sorry, I know this is a diatribe, but It's kind of in the Donald Cerrone fashion of bending over at the hip and just kind of pushing you to the fence. It's nothing particularly technical about it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree, but it's just I just feel like Tony's not the same,
No.
you know, and for me, a staple of Tony used to be that insane takedown defense that he would almost kind of let you, like he would either defend it or he would let you take his back so he can Granby roll you into positions that he found favorable, right? You didn't see that against Charles Oliveira, and you didn't see that against Justin Gaethje. And I feel like against Dariush, who's on a roll right now and is a world-class jiu-jitsu guy, and a guy who doesn't mind chaos himself, I feel like Tony might have been off a little more than he could chew in this specific fight here. And so if I'd say if you are a betting man and you want to take the under and you want to put some couple shekels down, why not? This is good value, right?
I would say potentially. I would say Tony, though, there are avenues for him to win. I think he has to really intercept the pressure of Dariush with his elbows and punish him. Dariush, effective but simple on the feet. He's all about that overhand left, and he'll follow it up with a right hook. One thing he did really well in the Fajeda fight is he timed the stance switch, of which Ferguson does amply. Whenever Fajeda would switch stance, he would crack him right on the chin with an overhand left. Areas where I could see it going poorly for Fajeda is throwing himself off balance. He doesn't eat a shot well, and that's, I think, because, Mike, we discussed it last time he fought, that sometimes he gets staggered in almost every fight. I think it's because of how much he throws himself out of his stance. So when the shot comes and he absorbs it, he's not in a position to absorb it properly. So he absorbs it flush on the chin instead of being able to roll with it in his stance. The up kicks of Ferguson could give me pause, too, because in that Fajeda fight, he was just wading into the guard, not really cautious of what was coming back at him, just winging that overhand, leading chin first into the guard. And Ferguson's got a dangerous up kick.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, though, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm definitely going to go with Dariush for this, just based off Tony Ferguson's last two performances. No disrespect to Tony Ferguson, although who cares if it is? No shot, Tony, but who cares?
Wow.
I'm sorry. I don't have to like him as a human being. I respect his fighting skills.
Do you not like him as a human being?
I'm not going to say that on camera, but
you don't like. Why don't you like Tony as a human being?
I don't know. I just see like the way
he's a weird guy. He is a weird guy.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know him as a human being, so I can't really comment on it. But his media personality isn't for me. And just based on purely fighting stuff, Dariush, power. I haven't seen any power in Tony Ferguson's shots in a very long time, and he struggled against Justin Gaethje's power. Dariush, grappler, BJJ. As you said, one of the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC. Against Charles Oliveira, Tony Ferguson was dominated in the jiu-jitsu interaction. So I can't see it going any different.
I'm just getting my dog some water. Hold on.
No problem. I think another thing, once again, is that Tony Ferguson, with all due respect, I don't think his chin is the same. I think he looks a little bit more lightweight than he used to. I just see Dariush as, I think a younger Tony Ferguson would have this fight no problem. But I'm wondering whether he's, and maybe he never recovered from cutting weight twice in like a month.
That was so stupid. Thank you for bringing it up. That was so dumb.
But for me, it's like, Dariush has the power. Dariush has the jiu-jitsu.
You have Dana White privilege.
Hilarious. Tony Ferguson, the myth of like the anti-wrestling, the great defensive wrestling. Charles Oliveira took Tony Ferguson pretty much at will in their last fight. And I'm not saying Dariush is Charles Oliveira, but I just don't see it. In terms of like intercepting elbows, I just don't see that level of stand-up. Like Tony Ferguson's never been a game plan fighter. He's always been a chaos fighter. And I trust Dariush to have the discipline. Just keep it simple.
Wait, Dariush is not a disciplined fighter.
Yeah,
these fighters both thrive on chaos.
More to have discipline than Tony Ferguson. I think
based on what performance?
based on at least he's been getting some wins and he's looked good over the
Yeah,
past.
but not based on discipline. He
It
turns
was
every
based on
fight into a brawl.
Well, I thought he found a more measured approach against Ferreira.
Are you serious?
Like,
You mean the
because
fight that he was check hooked at the end of every exchange?
yeah, because Ferreira has a really nice check hook. Like that's his like if any weapon Ferreira has, it's his hook. No, so
I didn't see discipline, but
I mean,
No,
fair
it's fine.
enough.
For me, I just see I see Dariush taking this one because I think Tony Ferguson's best days are kind of behind him. I'm not sure his jiu-jitsu is what it used to be. It's not as good as Dariush, and I'm not sure he has the power to keep up with Dariush either, or the technique. If I'm being honest.
I'm just gonna jump in the
Sorry,
back of the. Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in the back of the conga line and be like, I'm gonna pick Dariush too. I think it's an amalgamation of everything you guys just said. And I like listening to you guys because it's informing me that I'm getting a better pulse of my assessment of fighters and say that it was nothing spectacular when I was watching the film of Dariush. It was nothing spectacular that he was doing that was making me pick him. But kind of to the tune of what Stefano said, I don't see the fire in Tony Ferguson to give him the edge over somebody who's coming off a pretty good hot streak.
Well, see, this is the other thing I do want to mention too, and the one point I want to mention. While Dariush is an interesting guy because while he doesn't have the greatest chin, and when he does get hit flush, he does tend to get staggered. And in the to Stefano's point, to lend credence to it, he did get staggered a couple times with that check left. He does, for some reason, his recovery is pretty good, right? So while he does get staggered, he recovers relatively well. And you always wonder, when is it going to be the fight where the recovery isn't there anymore? It could be this one. It could be the next fight over. It could be 3 fights over. You don't know. But you don't tend to bet on it, right? And so I think if this is the fight where Dariush's chin starts to deteriorate, I think Tony could have a really fun time really turning this into another classic Tony Ferguson sloppy chaos fight. But I doubt it at this stage of Tony's career. He's getting up there in age. He's taking a lot of damage. I think in the facet of that anti-wrestling game, it's not the same because Tony Ferguson seems to have, not sustained as much muscle mass as he did in his younger years. Jiu-jitsu, Dariush has that. And I think striking, they're about the same if Tony doesn't bring that chaos with him. But this is where I have to kind of, play the middle here. He has been working with Freddie Roach, who's been cleaning up his technical offensive boxing. So if Tony all of a sudden comes with a right straight, and has a great jab, Dariush is very hittable, right? And then all of a sudden, Tony adds a couple extra things to his game from an offensive standpoint. It could get close. It can get interesting.
One area of the fight as well, I mentioned that overall, I do think that Dariush most likely has the better jiu-jitsu game. The up kicks are an area that could be interesting. Another area as well, especially if Tony hurts him in the center of the cage, especially I do think the front headlock could potentially present some problems for Dariush if Dariush shoots towards the center of the cage and fails to get those shots. And he will whiff on takedowns because, let's be honest, his double leg is not phenomenal. It's not phenomenal. And Tony is dangerous from the front headlock position. Finishing takedowns towards the center of the cage is a lot different than finishing them against the cage. And a lot of, unless he gets in clean on the hips, a lot of Dariush's takedowns tend to come against the cage. He hits the double leg, pushes you up against the fence, and then hits either a trip or some kind of awkward takedown. So, especially if Tony hurts him and cuts him and gets desperation shots out of Dariush, we could see some interesting front headlock work. One of the mistakes I've made in the past in assessing fighters is that, I'll often take out a lot of the human factors and kind of look at them as if they're characters in a video game with certain stats and certain moves which will play up against each other. And there's always the human element which we haven't discussed, and which we've discussed here today. And it's one of the reasons why I picked Tony to beat Oliveira. And I was wrong about that because fighters aren't in a vacuum. They're affected by losses. They're affected by momentum. They're affected by things outside of the cage. And we'll see if the same Tony Ferguson turns up turned up against Oliveira, or the Tony Ferguson that went on that historic run in the lightweight division.
Yeah. Although, you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if Tony got that classic Tony Ferguson Darce choke? You know?
That would be spectacular.
Yeah. But,
I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Anyways, you want to quickly run down the rest of this card? We were going to do a story time, but we're running low on time, so we will save it for Sunday. Jesus. We need some caffeine up in this biznatch.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know which podcast you're doing on Saturday, but it's not the Light Kick. Yeah.
Anyways,
Bontorin versus Max Schnell.
That's correct. Bontorin got a hell of a chin on him. Let's see. Butt was KO'd by Kai Kara France in just an absolutely chaotic fight earlier this year in March. Quick turnaround from a KO that vicious.
Yeah. Right. I remember one of the more hilarious parts of that fight too was after Kai knocked him out. Kai did a victory lap and then came back around thinking that like the fight wasn't stopped yet.
And then went to punch him again. Yeah, that's right. Schnell, coming off a win earlier this year in January, and before that losing to Pantoja in the first round in South Korea in 2019. Yeah, I don't remember too much of Schnell, and I don't think you guys do either, to be honest.
No.
Yeah,
No,
I don't think so.
I watched him fight before.
It's flyweight, man. Come on.
What?
How dare you, Mike? That's sizest of you.
Flyweight.
You've got Dana White privilege, sir.
If your name is not Moreno, Perez, or Figueroa, okay, and also Askarov, it's
Mike,
hard. I'm not gonna lie.
You are neglecting the flyweight division, my friend, more than David has neglected cleaning his carpet.
Hilarious. Guys, do me a favor. Look up Max Schnell on your Google right now.
Why?
It's just a picture of like one of the characters in the Disney movie Cars.
That's it?
That's it. I can't find like an actual picture of this dude. I'm sure if I type in Max
I'm
Schnell,
looking at pictures of him right now.
If you just type in Max Schnell?
Oh, Matt Christopher Schnell.
That was just a funny one. Yeah, so actually, I don't think I've seen this one.
It's true. It's true. All I get is Max Schnell from Cars. He's right. You have to type in his
name is Max Schnell. Yeah, I don't think I was actually seeing this guy fight. So, yeah.
Anyways, next up, we've got Caitlin Chukagian versus Vivian Arroyo.
Araujo. I'm kidding. Don't kill me.
Arroyo. And Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, which is another car crash. I see this similar to Chandler and Oliveira, except Barboza does not really have tools to mitigate pressure very much and just more tries to intercept you on the way in. And Burgos isn't really the wrestling threat of Chandler, but will come forward and throw counter punches and put counter combinations, putting his own physical health at risk. I mean, if I told you guys that 5 years ago in 2021, Edson Barboza would be fighting at 145 and Oliveira would be fighting for the title at 155, you'd probably tell me to go suck a goat or something like that.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. I remember saying, I used to say this all the time, there should be no reason why Edson Barboza, remember I used to say this, there should be no reason why Edson Barboza shouldn't be the lightweight champion of the world, right? But there's just deficiencies in his game that people take advantage of, and there are patterns that he just hasn't been able to clean up. But with that being said, he's on a bit of a run. He looks like he's cleaning up some of those patterns at featherweight against lower level competition, granted. But, it looks like he's starting to figure it out a little bit. And this is a good little litmus test for him to see if he's still got the juice. Again, look for those famous kicks to come early and often. I would love to see a teep or a side kick from him to just keep Burgos at bay, but you're not going to get that at this stage of his career. So
you might see a nice switch kick to the liver, though. You know what you're going to get in that fight. And then headlining the prelims, we've got Emmanuel Yarbrough coming out of retirement to face Aki Bono. This one should be a banger by all accounts.
Why you like this, man?
I'm like, wait, no.
Well,
Jacare.
Anyways,
wait, you're not gonna give Jacare some love?
Oh yeah, Jacare. I don't know who he's fighting, to be honest with you.
Muniz.
Muniz.
I don't remember this cat fighting either, to be honest.
Andre Muniz. Yeah, it's crazy how these youngins can just. Is this his first UFC fight?
Someone pull up his Tapology page. Well, see, you know what's crazy though? I remember when I was a kid, and I'd know.
Oh no, he beat Bartosz Fabiński by an armbar. I probably saw it. Don't remember it. Oh, he has two. He's a Contender Series product. Okay. Makes sense. Unfortunately, it might be a lesson in,
levels to this shit.
How far has Jacare fallen? Again, I don't know too much about this gentleman, but
give me Jacare. There's gonna be levels to this. Even see, as much as we talk about Diego Sanchez, falling off a cliff. Remember when he had to give Mickey Gall the levels to this shit lesson?
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised, right? Like Jacare could probably turn back the clock. I'm gonna pick Jacare. I'm gonna pick Jacare.
Fun bit of trivia. Did you know that the guy that Fabricio Werdum fought in his last fight played him in a movie?
You're kidding.
That is funny.
You're being serious?
Okay, I spent a lot of hours looking that up.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Well, boys, we spent a long time.
That was an energy-filled episode.
Yeah, we're dead, and I don't know why.
You know what? To be honest, I thought this was a pretty good episode.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to our Low Energy podcast. Subscribe, follow us on.
Listen to this while you're falling asleep. Instead of an ambient, just put this podcast in the background.
You mean an ambient? Do you mean an ambient?
Yeah, sure.
Use an ambient.
Oh, I don't know. I don't do drugs. You're just giving yourself. I don't do drugs. So.
You don't do drugs, but you do improperly frame yourself on camera. And what you don't do is clean your carpet.
No, never.
God damn, your carpet's looking like Jeremy's toilet. Anyways, we are the Leg Kick Podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you can find podcasts or media. We exist. Tell a friend about it. Tell your neighbor's dog about it. That is about it. Mike, to play us out, what does that mean?
Man, you forgot to threaten the children.
I will kill your children. There, happy.
Oh my god.
Nice and simple. I like it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so in this crazy mixed up world where Stefano will kill your children just outright.
I will kill them. No rhyme or reason to it. This is not a threat. This is just a promise.
Take it easy.
All right, relax. We love children here. Right?
I don't know this man. I'm not affiliated to this man in any way.
You child killer. Shame on you.
That doesn't even look like Verdun, man.
I know, but he played him in a biopic.
Oh.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, just for people who don't know, he sent the link of the guy who plays Verdun and
his last opponent.
His last opponent who fake tapped on him. Shameful, disgraceful.
Mike had a really bad take about that. Anyways, go on. Mike, you had a bad take.
But
in this crazy mixed up world, in this crazy mixed,
I'm not a bad take.
Yeah, you're muted. In this crazy mixed up world where Mike has bad takes.
Don't mute my.
In this crazy mixed up world
Oh,
where Mike's bad takes are infecting the airwaves, and Mike seems to be intent on rejoining the call. You got three things. You've got my threats, you've got David's dirty carpet, and you've got Jeremy's filthy toilet. Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Be better.